Hey everybody, we're going live. Hopefully all my audio is working here. So if you can hear me and see me, give me a thumbs up in the chat. Tell me maybe tell me what boots you're wearing. Today I've got a extra. Oh, let's see if I can check myself. It seems like it's working. All right, cool. So today we got extra special stuff. I'm going to look at some footage I shot at the Stitch Down Palooza tour of Horween Leather Tannery. And that was about, I think it was 2 weeks ago today. There's a group of about 25 people that came all the way to Chicago to visit all of us here in the leather world in Chicago. So they took a tour of the tannery, and that's what we're going to look at. So part of, hey, what's up, Dr. Gear? So part of the challenge of filming anything in the tannery, it's been a persistent challenge for me, is it's very noisy and super loud in that building. So it's often pretty difficult to hear what the tour guide is saying. And you may have seen I've done a couple different videos there. I've done a few with Nick. The one we're going to see today, the tour guide is Skip Horween himself. And Skip's incredible. You can tell that even the people on the tour guide, and there might be some people here, like Ben was there, that couldn't hear what Skip was saying. So I'd like to try to explain maybe what he was talking about. So the goal today, show you everything that we looked at the tannery, sort of be a fly on the wall as part of our little tour group. And then I'll try to clarify some of the stuff that's inaudible. But who's here? Dr. Gear's here. Easy Mock and Natural Chrome Excel. Hell yeah. And yeah, Chrome Excel, there's a good component in the video that we're going to look at. There's a lot of Chrome Excel being made, so you get to see how the leather for your footwear was made. Oyster's here. Good morning. Floodlights here. Alden Indies. Great. I wore Alden Indies during this tour group. And Ben, good to see you, man. Thanks for coming to hang out. Tim's here. All right, let's flip it over. And by the way, it's Stitch Down, folks. If anybody's here from Stitch Down, it's such a pleasure to get to meet all of you guys in person. I had so much fun, and you'll see in the beginning of the video here. Just loved looking at everybody's cool boots and stuff. I know I'm a total nerd, but whatever. All right, let's play some video here. So the hope will be to play a couple sections. But what I'd really encourage you to do is anytime that you see something going on, you're like, what is that? Just ask me, and I'll try to elaborate on what's going on. So I'll try to go for a bit. If there's something that's confusing, I might talk over this a little bit, but we'll do it section by section. I'll stop after each part of the like each little department. And then we can answer some questions about what that department is. Sunbeamer, you're wearing KFC Crocs. Is that chicken Crocs? Welcome, Sunbeam. Welcome, William from Houston. Awesome. All right, let's get it rolling here. Hello, everybody. So this is the famous Stitch Down Palooza group.
Get after it. Look at this.
Does the branding device help at all?
Man, I'm very impressed.
Ooh, mask on Georgia. Welcome, Lori. And here's Skip Horween, the tour guide.
Why are we doing what we're doing? And the answer should be because we've always done it that way. It should be because it makes it all the best. If there's a better way to do it, I'd like to know it. I'd like to do it that way. So we'll see sort of where that journey takes us with sort of the main pillars of what we're doing now. And we'll give nods, and you'll see some stuff of the things that we're working on. And we have plenty of things where, we try something, we go, oh, well, we don't never do that again. That was good. Yeah. So I think we all do some of that. We can pray for also. So let's start there. We're going to go down to the high receiving. And we'll be back in an hour.
So we're walking down to the bowels Horween. This is the basement level. And the first section that we're going to look at here, this is actually the hide house. It used to be a beam house. This was a different tannery back in the late 1800s, which Skip, I think, briefly touches on. But they bought this building from a different tannery in the early 1900s.
So this is the hide house, and where the pickle paddles are, over there. These are all the hides.
And I think the really important thing to know about this
blue ones are
section of the tour, this is where they receive hides, and it's the first point of inspection for all the hides. And this guy's asking about haunted, so
That's good.
I'll get back to that.
I also haven't changed the formulas just to prevent them. Really? I told somebody, I think we could probably make Cordovan faster than the 6 months it takes us. And I'm not sure where I stand on believing ghosts, but I don't want to put it to the test because they will come and visit me. Yeah. So this is where we do our hide deceiving, and this is the oldest part of the building. This, my great grandfather's lot, was what was built for the Herman Lesher company. So this part was built in the and then it was expanded. And what you'll see as we walk was like a lot of.
So he had mentioned there that they bought it from a tannery called Herman Lesher.
Our process flow sheet looks like when you can't draw an esters. Okay, we go back and forth, and now we do a big job and But this we used to receive all our hides in the raw state, and now we receive some of them in the raw state. Our protan, we did make the decision a couple years ago to move off-site, largely for staffing. And this was pre-pandemic, which was meant to be a happy mistake to make at the time, because if I hadn't staffed it, I would have been completely.
Okay, I'm going to pause it very quickly. So what Skip's talking about here, he said that this is where we receive the hides. We do all the chrome. We used to do all the chrome tanning in-house, and recently with the pandemic, they had to outsource some of the chrome tanning to a third party. And it was, I suppose, a challenge for him because they had to find somebody that would run their exact chrome tanning formula. Something people might not know is that all chrome tan formulas are a bit different. So Horween's is significant and it's much different because it sort of plumps up in the tanning process. A lot of other tanneries, they're trying to maximize yield, where Horween's trying to maximize plumpness. So by increasing the yield, the skins tend to get a little thinner. So they had to find somebody that would run their formulations. The other thing behind him there, we didn't get to see it because they weren't doing the job at the moment. But if you look back here, there's a little table. And when they receive the hides in, they lay them out on the table and they check the size. And they'll also, this is the most important task of this department, is to crop the hides into workable shapes. So in the case of steer hides or bovine leather, they crop the animal down the backbone. So instead of having one whole hide, they end up with two sides. And Horween, all their machines are set up to process that dimension of skin. So they're a side tannery. And in the case of horse hides, they also run deer and bison from time to time. But in the case of horse hides, they're not cropping it down the mane. They actually crop it sort of at the waist. And the goal there is to crop the butt of the animal off to find the shells. So we didn't really get to see that as part of the tour here, but that's the most important function of the hide house here, is to sort of receive hides, crop them into workable shapes. The other interesting thing is the hides at this stage are just salted and brined. So they'll actually rot and deteriorate, especially when it gets warmer out. So it's a perishable product at this state, and that's the whole job of a tannery, is to turn that perishable, infinitely variable hide into the same thing every time, and it's going to be everlasting. I'll get to your questions in a second, but let's keep going through the hide house, and once we get through here, I'll start to answer some questions, because this video is about 40 minutes long.
We found people who were willing to run our tan for us, because we do like our own cooking. And that was it. So what you see here is raw. We have some horse hides here that we can have no process here.
These are the horse hides?
Some bison and some steer hide in, because we're doing wet green, olive canning, and we're licensed to do that.
Beautiful camera work. You're welcome.
We do the pre-tan of the camp. So, but it all starts here. We do our macro inspection here. If there's a hide issue, we're going to check each one, go through it, and then tell the hide guy, hey, we've got this for playing with. So, at one time, they used to do unhairing of the Cordovan shells in here, and this was all pits, and they used an old system called Hair Save, which was just to loosen the hair enough where they could scrape it off. And we filled this in about 15, 18 years ago, something like that. To use the space for that, because we hadn't done that system for years. That's just so we changed that over. So from here, we're going all across the building to the beam house, and we will come back and catch the other things on the way.
All right, some good questions here. Oyster says, does this have any influence on why Alden doesn't use natural chrome excel? No, I think that was their, a business decision that Alden made. I'm not certain of what's going on in Alden's business operations. But Horween still makes natural chrome excel. I buy natural chrome excel and I make stuff out of natural chrome excel. Lori says, I have a pair of Horween leather boots from Thursday and a Horween leather tote from Popov coming out of Canada. Yeah, those are both great companies. And natural chrome excel is the right pick, especially from Thursday. I know that they would do some other leathers, but the natural chrome excel, I believe, is the only Horween one that they do. I could be mistaken on that. And Oyster, there's not necessarily a hide shortage. What we're seeing recently at Horween is there's such a backlog of orders. They're having a hard time with staffing. From COVID, they had to shut down. A lot of people got sick, and a lot of people quit. So the video here is sort of capturing a moment where it's the least amount of people that I had ever seen there, and I've been going to the Tannery. Man, if you want to be technical about it, I've been going to the Tannery for 25 years, but I worked there for 15 years, so this is the least amount of people I'd ever seen there. And yeah, Lori, I feel like the respect to the animal is really important, and that's why I like what Horween's doing so much, is they're really taking the time to make a leather that's just as good as it can be, as opposed to make as much money as possible. I think that shows a bit of respect to the animal. Good to see you, Mike. So we're in the beam house here.
So here in the beam house, this is where if you brought raw hides in, you would be doing hair removal.
And those big cement mixers are where they remove the hair.
What is called hydrated line, where it's just like industrial strength and air. Attacks the air down in the follicle. And then everything comes out of there, and it comes over to these flesh.
So you can't hear Skip here, but these are fleshing machines. So after they sort of remove the hair with a product that's similar to industrial strength Nair, as Skip puts it, they sort of scrape away some of the unwanted fats from the flesh side of the skin on those machines. And what he's pointing out there's a smaller drum here and larger drums to the right. That's where they do the chroming. The pickle, bait, and chrome are all done in those. And now we're walking towards the pit tanning section. You're going to come across some pickled horsehide butts, or horse butts, and all these pits. And this is where they sort of steep the shells in like a tea made out of tree barks, and that's what's known as veg tanning. And what Skip's touching here are the pickled butts, so they're still not tanned. And he's going to demonstrate to you how you know if it's pickled or not, pressing his finger into it. And if it holds its shape, that means it was pickled properly. And he describes a story about when he was a kid. His grandpa told him, hey, you can test the pickle by biting the skin here. And Skip says, if you want me to bite that, I'm not working here.
So he did. He goes, you want to try that? said, if you make me do that, I will never.
If you make me do that, I will never work here.
You wonder why you got that.
Sean, there is a wastewater treatment plant on site.
What are we looking for is good shade for tan. So we're gonna go here, we're gonna tan it for 60 days, we're gonna keep running it. It's here, it's tanning.
So Skip was just saying that these pits, it takes 60 days to tan it in these pits.
Mark extracts, and we have tanks that are bigger than that, and we cook our own liquor.
And he says we cook our own liquor here out of the different blends of tree barks. They do all that on site. It's sort of a secret formula. It's so hard to hear him. That's part of the reason I wanted to talk over this. But in those pits, there are sticks hanging across, and he's going to pull up one of the sticks right now. And they hang the horse butts inside of these pits, and they slowly steep and accept all the tannins from the tree barks here. See in this on the stick, they nail on the horse butts here. So that's how veg tanning is done. Yeah, Mikey missed something, and we didn't fully do a linear tour here, but the hair's removed, the butts get pickled, and the paddles from the first room we were in, and then they come over here and get tanned for 30 days. And they come out, get shaved, and they come back in the pits for another 30 days.
Here, we're putting leather in Cordovan.
So Skip. So the question was just asked, and that's a good question from Tim here on the right. Said, is this the same formula that you used to do? And Skip says this is straight out of Isidore's tanning book. The same formula that they started doing in 1905 from Skip's great grandfather. The first generation Horween. Skip is the fourth generation, and they're using the same formula today that they did back in 1905. The formula in 1905 was with the intent to make razor strops, and the safety razor came about, and people stopped buying. People stopped needing razor strops, so the tannery found another use for it in footwear. But they still are using the same everything, and you can tell. You'll see through this walkthrough. It's like a working museum here. Everything is more or less exactly the way it was done before. Sometimes there's machines or materials that they can't get anymore because they don't exist. So there are some slight, like minor changes, but 99% of it is exactly the way it was done 117 years ago. Cordovan Indies and long wings in the sun. You're doing the sun, the sun fading. And Ben says, can you figure out how to pump the lovely scent of the tannery through the computers? We're working on that. Our metaverse tannery. Let's keep it rolling.
Are you trying to accomplish different things? Yeah, I mean, this is our initial tanning before the first shaving. Okay. And after that, we're going to be taking the parts of the box.
So Skip is saying there, we do an initial tanning, they shave the butt to expose the shell, and then they come back in and tan it again. And we'll look at the next section here. They separate out something called a strip from the butts, and the strips get used for different products. The horse fronts get used for different products, and the butts, everybody knows the Cordovan. A Monk 93 from Lincoln, Nebraska. Welcome, man. So this is 2 steps later. We've pulled the butts out of the pits, let them dry a little bit, and then they shave to start to expose the first bits of the shell. So this is where they're going to trim off the strip from the shells.
And here, come up, you can see what we're looking for is a difference in color and in grain structure. So you'll have to come a little closer.
It's tough to hear Skip, sorry.
Yeah, no, you have to come a little closer. Looking for a difference in texture and color. So here, you can see where it's grain and this is flesh. Because remember, the shell is closer to the inside than the outside of the animal. So we're looking right through there.
So if you were to not shake this down,
This is the shell, and this is going to be the strip.
That's right.
Oh, I see, right here.
So you can see where it's like smoother. And we'll see better examples of this upstairs when we go. So there you can see I successfully missed all of the shell, which is a good thing.
What percentage can you get out of the shell? Is it like 40% or varies?
Varies from animal to animal. I mean, typically you would say a larger animal would give you a larger shell, but that's not 100% true. So we would hope that he's going to trim out some of these things that might be dangerous if they process it further. But here, you get a great look. So that dark spot, we can pass this around.
Yeah.
That's shell.
This is a really cool demonstration here where he purposely cut through some of the shell so you could see how that dense membrane lays inside the skin, and I try to show it here a little
I
bit.
guess you can see it on here too.
There's like a darker layer that is the actual
darker
shell.
layer. Darker layer on top here.
So these are the trim.
Yeah, it's a shell, but I won't use it for
Somebody else say that.
The shell here,
The dark layer there,
you can see the shell sort of stops.
that's the gold.
Except on a mule, which is why we, on the website, takes the mule shell and makes it one piece cover.
Yeah.
Say mule?
Yeah, mule, the shell goes all the way across.
Funny fun stuff.
Well, you'll see, it's a different shape.
Is the shell only used for footwear and then the rest gets used for something else?
Oh, the rest of the hide?
Yeah, like only the nice part is shell, you say.
Well, yeah. So, nothing gets wrong.
Sure.
The strip gets used for carving, it's great. People use it for holster. Was that the strip? Yeah. And I love this strip.
It ages so well.
In the front, it's used for pets that not have the best selection. So it's used up for lining. This trumpet gets used for garments. So the heavier one, material to go back up. I had a couple of bags still on the work.
Okay, I'm going to pause. So that whole section there, I actually made a separate video that would come out Sunday where I caption what Skip's talking about, but he's talking about the 3 sections of the horsehide that get used for different functions. So the shells, most of it go for footwear. I mean, we make small leather goods out of it, so you can do that. We do wallets and watch straps. People make belts out of the shell Cordovan. Probably everybody here probably already knows about that. And then there's also right above the shells, there's that mustache shape called the strip, which we've released some wallets this week. Gosh, it was either Monday this week or Friday last week. Every day is rolling into the next for me. So the strips are really great. It's like a really nice veg. They tend to be pretty variable in terms of like grain character and thickness, so they're challenged to work with. And then there's the fronts sort of above the waist on the animal. And Skip said, he's got some bags that he loves. I believe Coronado Leather made his bag out of the horse front, and that's super nice. We make some, the horse fronts are inherently thinner, so we make some of our wallet interiors that have a lot of layers. We use those thinner horse hides. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, they're really rough, like in terms of grain clarity, which Skip describes there. So the horse fronts are also very difficult to work with. There were some good questions. somebody was asking if the hides in the hide house are firm. They're not like rock hard. You know, they will get super, super firm, but they come in salted and brined, so they're semi-malleable. But that's just because they've been cured a tiny bit. You know, they'll last a few months that way, but they're not initially they're actually quite soft, but as they dry out, they tend to get much more firm. Mike K, good to see you, says, do you know how long hides can last without being tanned? Is there a risk they go bad from staying untanned too long? Yeah, that's a big thing that I touched on earlier. Without tanning them, it depends a bit on the environment. But if it's hot, you know, those hides in their salted brine state only last a few months. And if it's colder, they last, 6 months to a year in my experience. But they need to be tanned. Otherwise they actually rot. Bugs will go in there and eat it. Rats will eat it. It's food. So it's not the best to hold a ton of hides, which is a challenge. Why there is a market for hides. If people stop buying leather, the hide people, or the tanneries won't need to buy hides, and the beef suppliers will have to lower the price of hides for that reason. What kind of pocket knife is Skip using? I don't know. Skip is really into pens. He's really into knives. Nick is even more into knives. I don't know which one he has here, but knowing Skip, it probably changes, every couple days. And Horween doesn't offer public tours, which is why I wanted to do this video, is to sort of like let you be a part of this tour, because it's a pretty rare occurrence for any group to go through here. Everybody in that Stitch Down Palooza group is pretty awesome that you were able to visit. But this is not something they do, especially with the pandemic. They shut it all down with no visitors. So no, they don't offer public tours. There were conversations about changing that and sort of having like a ticketed tour group where they would donate all the ticket revenue to some charity. But I don't think that's happened. But let's keep going here. I think we're going to the splitting department next. So after the leather's been tanned, they need to thin it down to an even, consistent weight. And that's what these green machines do on the right. This area is so noisy. The whole tannery is super noisy. It's going to be tough to hear what he's talking about. But he's saying these machines are from the late 1800s that they keep fixing and rebuilding.
I think the machines that we rebuild them here are from both around 1900.
I guess he said 1900, so I was a little early. The question there was how often do you have to change the blades, but they change them pretty frequently, like every week, and the blade goes all the way around the whole machine. Those two round areas, the blade goes across all that and underneath and above. So they're really, really long, sort of oval shapes.
We do some dry splitting, for some but not for finished product. That's typically done on a narrow sheet with tighter tones.
So what we're going to look at here, to me, this is the most difficult and most critical area of the tannery. This is called blue sorting, where they're going to select hides for certain products based on the grain clarity and the weight. And I don't know if Skip gives if we'll be able to hear a good explanation here.
What's up, Joe?
Joe on the right there has been at the tannery for many decades. Technically, he retired and came back to help. But you'll see little things like bug bites and scratches that might not be appropriate for certain tannages. And then he's also, you see, he'll feel for the weight and the thickness at the same time. If we're making belt weight stuff, he's going to have to choose heavier items to put into those belts.
here.
And this is the chrome top, right?
How long do you need to look at it to figure out what it needs to be?
We're moving on to the retanning department here. It's like a bandsaw. Nick.
Because all we've done in our chrome tanning or white tanning is preserve the stuff so we can
Okay, this is very critical. I'm going to pause him here.
here.
So Skip is, I guess you can see me better. I'm so beautiful. What Skip is saying here, we're in the retanning department, which is confusing, right? People think, oh, you're a leather tanner, you just tan it. The stage we were looking at earlier, there was a guy loading up a mill, a very large mill next to those orange mixers. That stage of the tanning process is to remove the hair and then cure the leather by taking out all the fats that are going to rot and deteriorate. And the room that he's standing in this image, this is the retanning department where we're going to replace all those fats and oils that we took out with other fats and oils that look good and feel good and smell good. So he explains here that every leather gets retanned. So it's not a unique thing. Basically, if you don't retan it, that leather will just turn into a potato chip because there's no nourishing fats in it. Mike K, yeah, we just looked at a machine that was 125 years old, those splitting machines. And getting parts is difficult. So they have a huge full-time team of maintenance people. They're incredibly talented. In fact, that shopping cart in front of you is one of the maintenance guys, vehicles. So he keeps they move all their stuff around through with that. But they're constantly maintaining stuff. It's never finished. It's a very large challenge to maintain this many old machines. So those guys are incredible, right? And yeah, I think there are times where the parts maker will stop making a part, so the tannery will have to find solutions for that. It doesn't, in my experience working there, there wasn't too many times where that happened. There are materials that stop getting made. Yeah. Preferences, Matt T. Preferences on conditioning: Cavalier Chrome Excel, Venetian Shoe Cream, Saphir Greasy Leather Conditioner. Great question. My answer would be it depends on what you want it to look like, and it depends on what it looks like now. So, if it's starting to look really dried out, it might. It's kind of a rare thing for some of these leathers to look very dry. I sell this product, so grain of salt this, but I really like my Tanner's Blend conditioner for nourishing the look and feel. Like if something's sort of looking chapped, like my hands do recently with like washing my hands all the time and hand sanitizer, I sort of get a little dried out. The Tanner's Blend will condition the leather really well. It's sort of like using a little lotion. But I haven't spent too much time with the greasy. I know people love that. I also really, really like Venetian cream. My word of caution for all polishing products is just start small and you can always add more, because if you oversaturate the leather in polish or conditioner, it will start to look like polish and conditioner, which is probably not what you want. It's probably going to look really white and sort of hazy because you're just layering on too much wax and it just looks like wax. So that would be my guidance. You can always add more. So start small and keep adding. Do little layers. Yeah. So Mike K is a good comment there. Assumed that retan meant Horween tanned it twice. All the leathers get tanned twice. So again, let's go back to the video here. The retanning department. The main things here. This was actually my first job. Was documenting the formulations and creating some quality controls for this department, the retanning department. And Horween has hundreds of different formulations. So retannages, where the tannages, like the chrome tanning, there's just one chrome tanning formula. So from that chrome tan base, you can do an infinite amount of retannages. So you say, well, what does that mean? What's a retannage? So a retannage, you can impart different materials back into the skins, like tree barks, for example. Chrome Excel is chrome tanned, and then they impart some of the tree bark liquor in these drums, and that becomes a combination tan with a chrome tannage and a vegetable retannage. You can also put in different nourishing oils. You can put waxes in. You can make the leather soft. You can make the leather firm. And another important section or step in this section is putting color in. So this department is actually called color and retan. In the finishing department later in the video, we'll see a skin that's blue on all the way through the leather. That blue color was done inside these mills with a penetrating dye. And Skip actually, I think in this section here, describes a little bit about how some of these penetrating dyes are becoming not produced. They're not making some of them anymore. So it's taking longer to get dyes to strike all the way through the leather. And I think he just is explaining, and that's because of environmental reasons, but I don't have much information on that.
We're going to apply formula as my customers are going to color and performance characteristics. So it'll be soft, firm, a blue, there, so probably. At the moment, still done here is wooden drum. I've got two experimental extruded color coatings. They're slower. They tend to be more efficient.
So he's saying that they do all the retanning in wooden drums, but he's experimenting with some non-wooden drums.
We're generally just pretty happy with coloring. I mean, we keep track. I mean, our business, we look at the segments. The biggest segment is sporting goods.
I think the question here was, who are your customers? What sort of industries are they in?
Which is down a little bit.
So sporting goods was number one. I think it's footwear after that.
Shoes are about the same size. And both those running around 40%, and then 20% sort of other.
So sporting goods, footwear are 80% of the business, and then 20% people like me making small leather goods, garments.
Far away, our biggest product was mechanical, hydraulic motors, the seals. Because, for example, General Motors cars have 37 seals in them.
Oh, Tim's here. What's up, Tim? I see you on the video too.
Our biggest customer. And back before just-in-time inventory, they had a little truck that ran back and forth every day. And they were doing, it's a much simpler leather to make. And they were doing more of that every week just cut a line than we do in a week.
Okay, so this is a pretty interesting story where Skip's saying, like, back in the day, they used to make a lot of mechanical leather, which was used for motor seals and gaskets and things like that. They were doing more leather for motor seals in a day than they do in a week total now. So it used to be a massive business before the synthetic seals were made.
With what happens in the retanning process, any different from the initial tan?
Okay, sure. So retanning is, it's going to be bark extracts or synthetic resin retans, and in some cases another extra shot as well. And then you're going to do oils, different types, amounts, penetrating, some that sit up, and then dyes. Again, if you want a certain color, we surface dye all football and basketball, but most of our other leathers are drum dyes. Because, like, if you're style now, I mean, sort of the T-core term, which is, I can put the color on top, and when you kick it against something, you'll see what was on it. Well, and that's fine. That's a taste choice. So theoretically, I could make a pair of black boots, put it on a red substrate, so when you kick it off, you'd rather green, blue, yellow, you name it, it could be. But for a lot of people,
Is this where they would do kind of like struck through?
yeah.
Okay.
Struck through is just a question of dying, so that in the process, it's the same color always through the bottom, or white. That's gotten harder and more expensive to do.
This is what we were just talking about.
Because the new or environmentally harder to get through. Well, we had guys that went through, and they went through like that, and they found some things in there that.
It might be pretty difficult to hear what he's saying here, but this was the question about what do we do in these drums? We can impart different dyes, and it used to be a lot easier to strike through the leather to make a drum dyed leather. Good question here from I'm going to go to this question from Poppy. It says, other than Choke Cordovan, what other article of Horween stands out from other tanneries? What makes it different? So the big thing, and I'll get specific, but generally speaking, the biggest thing about Horween is how full of material the leather is. And that's sort of the thing you can tell. If I can tell immediately, if comparing to a different tannery, it's just how rich it is and full. You really tell that there's a lot in there. And I think a lot of that has to do, if it's a chrome tan leather, a lot of it has to do with their chrome formulation, but also this retanning department that they're in right now. They just impart so much material inside the skin, or a lot of other tanneries feel very empty. So an article that stands out for Horween, the big one, and people have mentioned in this, is the Chrome Excel leather. So Chrome Excel, incredibly rich. It's been used for 100 years. It's very functional, very durable. There's a nice look. It has been found, many useful things have been made out of it. So World War I and II, they made boots out of Chrome Excel. Those motor gaskets and seals were a variation of Chrome Excel called mechanical Chrome Excel. And then, I do wallets. There's people doing amazing jackets out of it. All sorts of great stuff made out of Chrome Excel, but it really has to do with the retanning. So there is we didn't do this on the tour, but there's another section of the retanning process called hot stuffing, where Chrome Excel in specific is a leather that is hot stuffed. So what is hot stuffing? Hot stuffing is you take a drum like the one behind Skip here. You see these, we can't see it. If you look at those wooden drums, in hot stuffing, there's steam heated wooden drums that melt more raw waxes and oils and greases that let you sort of pound it into the skin. And that's what's being done on Chrome Excel. So there's some materials that are not water soluble, and maybe you don't want to emulsify them to sort of get them in the skin. They can sort of pound those waxes and oils into Chrome Excel in this other process called hot stuffing. And technically that is a retanning process. I also really like Dublin. Somebody mentioned that in the comments here. But Chrome Excel is probably their other big one. Football leather is very significant. Nobody else has figured out how to make football just right. It's a combination of the tandem tack process that's a secret that Horween does. It's the stickiness, the texture of the leather, and the color. Nobody's been able to get all three of those right. The lore is that some other tanners had tried to do it and they would get two of the three, but they couldn't get all three. So football would probably be the other massive one. And somebody was piggybacking. Mike K says, have you seen more than bovine leather and Cordovan? What about goat hide? Have you seen more than bovine leather and Cordovan? Yeah, we've done at Horween, we've done some bison, which is that technically go bovine? It probably is. I've seen goat leather. I've seen stingray. Horween doesn't do any exotics. Some people call Cordovan an exotic, but they do Cordovan. So mainly what they're doing is horse, bovine, bison. They've done some deer. Not a whole lot of deer, but it's mostly bovine. Good question. All right, let's keep it rolling. We're going to walk up the stairs here up to one of the drying processes called pasting. And this is, somebody would say that this is a pretty big exercise. I wanted to include this stair in the video because it shows you just how tall the building is.
Your workout for the day.
It's 5 stories tall to get all the way up to this pasting department. And back in the hide house, Skip was talking. Oh, let's go back. Sorry. Here, I'll skip it back. We got the stairs. All right. There's 5 stories of stairs here.
There's your workout.
And Skip
for the
was
day.
talking about how everything is sort of ad hoc in this tannery because it's so old. They needed a new machine or whatever, and they would just sort of put it wherever there was room. So it's not very modern in terms of like production flow. It's pretty ad hoc. It's not great.
Leather or starch-based paste and sticking into these frames.
So this is a drying method called pasting, where they stick the leather to these big frames and let it dry in a 5-stage oven that we're about to look at.
Comes around here, hot air dryer, about 4.5 hours. Dry.
So you don't use anything but the paste, just to hold them up.
And our guys,
Yeah.
we put this unit up in 1947. Wow.
So the goal here is to dry the leather, of course, but they're also trying to get some money, maximize the area of the skin, because every piece of leather that Horween makes is sold by the square foot. It also has a really interesting effect of sort of flattening the grain. I'm actually there's a leather they make called Latigo. I'm wearing a Latigo wallet right now, and the grain is very flat on the Latigo because it's paste dried on the machine you're seeing right now. So it has some unique grain character that comes from this drying method. Not a lot of people are pasting anymore. It's mostly vacuum drying and toggling.
So one sheet per hide, one side on each side, one side on each.
And what do you accomplish drying them this way?
Well, they are extended because we are, and again, that's one of the things that Simon's really good at, is yield is important. You buy by the piece, you sell by the foot. So you'd like as many feet as you can get from serviceable leather. In our case, with the football here, we want it compact because we want it to really take and keep and emboss.
What's up, it's runners? Good to see you, man.
Let's see. Oh, wow.
This is just for sporting?
No, I mean, there's certain leathers, like these nice little Latigos and our new bucks. We paste all over.
This is just a problem.
Sorry?
What's the problem?
Yeah, I mean, it holds it out while dry. And then the action of having basically slicked it down, and with those tighter fibers, we feel we get a better print for our football business. Because, there's Wisconsin, they're Cordovan. Really sure.
You can buy swatchbooks Mike K from the Tannery row. Horween's so busy right now, they just can't make swatches. All right, we're walking down to we're walking through the Cordovan department here to get to another drying stage called toggling, which they clip little hooks onto the edge of the leather and sort of pull it and stretch it apart and let it air dry that way. We're walking through the shaving section of the Cordovan process there to get to the toggling
Lots
room.
of Tannery shoes, they have auto togglers, and they have frames that are hinged in the middle. So they have a machine that raises the auto toggle, puts them on, and then right before it goes to drying, give it a drive the wedge and stretch it. Most of ours we're just doing hand tight as they keep the top as they're drying.
And one of my favorite guys here, Long.
What's up, Long? Hey, what's up? You okay? Yeah, good to see you.
Long's a good vibe. A really fun guy. So here you can see the toggle clip, if it gets in focus. And you'll see how they do that here, lay out the skin. These are baseball glove sides, and I believe these are used for catcher's mitts. And they just clip it on the edge and start to pull it up, pull it a little bit. If you pull too far, it's not always the best. a lot of places really toggle super hard. It'll actually thin down the leather a tiny bit, which can sometimes be good because you get more area. And so for everybody that's new here, by the way, if you have any questions about anything that you're seeing, that's the whole reason to do this
Good
live.
to see you guys.
Just hit me with your questions, because it's hard to hear, Skip. So here's the shaving department, or shaving process of the Cordovan department. This is actually the first shaving we are skipping around here, because back in the beginning when Skip was demonstrating where the shell is in the skin, this is the stage just when they first start to expose the shell, where you can start to see where it is. So these are bladed cylinders that are spinning around, and then the operator, Ortega on the machine there, he uses his heel to press down on that little floor pedal, and it pushes that front bar into the bladed cylinder. And if he goes too far, he cuts through the shell. If he doesn't go far enough, you can't see where the shell is. So it's a pretty challenging job. And what Skip's holding there are shavings from the shell there. They haven't found any good use for those shavings yet.
So the first part is to expose the shell, get the plug in a little bit more. And then what do you do with the second round? The second, we're actually doing a final shave. Finally fully exposing the shell and getting ready to go.
Yeah, Mike K, it's like a working museum. Like, all this stuff, I'm going to pause it for a second, touch on that. I call it a working museum. And if you look at the ceilings here, you might not be able to see it, but every machine has a big pulley next to it. Every machine that moves. And these days, they're all direct drive with single motors for each machine. But if you look at the pulley system, you can envision a world where all this was powered by steam, with one big pulley sort of powering all the other pulleys. Even the fans on some of the ceiling are belt driven from, that steam powered whatever back in the day. But now they've moved towards, single motors for everything. It's quieter. It's more efficient. And then, everything is old. Everything is super old. And so it's pretty much like a working museum. Poppy says shell cross section or edge has a natural shine just from cutting. Pit tan cowhide needs some sanding, and Dublin requires a bit of toconol. What properties of the leather makes it more burnishable? I noticed that the veg stuff, just in general, tends to be a little bit more easily burnished. When you cut the shell, I don't find it to be bright and shiny right off the bat. It needs like a little bit of action to get it smoothed out.
Yeah, they're shaving the reveal where
All right, we're gonna look at some stacks of Cordovan butts here, and this is misleading. So that says 1,000 butts. Oh man, they have so much shell. They sit in these piles for several months, and I think 3 months is where they're at right now, where they find to be the best. But honestly, the longer they sit in those piles, the better the leather gets. It's sort of like aging a whiskey or something. It mellows out, and all those oils get a chance to sort of even out through the skin. The machine we're looking at here is crazy looking. It's called a rolling jack. And that sort of compacts the leather, makes it a little bit more dense, and also it sort of evens it out a bit. It makes it a little softer and dense, which is interesting. So that's what the butts look like before they're cut in half. And that's a mule shell there that on the table I didn't get a look at. So that one goes all the way across. So that's a really rare treasure. They're going to probably make some one-piece belts out of that. They do run 24 hours, but not every department is 24. There's somebody at the tannery 24 hours a day, even on the weekends. So yeah, looks like a lot of leather there, but there's still a lot of work to be done even on each of those after they've cured. So it's not like we can just, or the tannery can just ship that out the door. They don't really have it. They call them smear piles. There's a process before that called smearing. But they just let them sit there. It's really part of it's called currying. They hand curry some leathers, and they need a chance to sort of even out. So what we didn't get a look at, what everybody's looking at in this shot, are the brush finish machines for the Cordovan. I didn't really get to capture that, but that's where they apply the different colors. And they do multiple coats. It depends on the shade. But there's different blends of dyes that are applied with a machine brush, like a mechanical brush, but also people hand swab it after that brush coat. And there's a question here about, why is the reverse side of black shell sort of green? And it's because the leather gets dyed with a black dye that has a green tint to it, and that those shells all get dunked in water, and part of those black dyes migrate into the water and turns a little bit green and rubs off onto the reverse side. All right, now we're looking at some chrome excel here. This is actually part of the stuffing department for hot stuffing we were talking about earlier. This machine that's yellow and green is called a setting machine. So after the leather is hot stuffed, they need to sort of even it out on this process called setting. So it sort of lays the leather flat and packs it in a tiny bit. And that's natural chrome excel at this point. There still needs to be a significant amount of process done to it. It doesn't look particularly nice now, but you can really see just how much is in there, like how much wax and oil. Like it looks wet, but it's just full of oils and waxes, grease. You see how it's a little wavy. I'm trying to even out the skin there to lay it flat. Now we're going to walk into the finishing department here. Mike, sometimes I see the natural shell has that little green splatter on the reverse side. I think it's just water laying on like whatever table they're using. Sometimes it changes I don't know why, but I've noticed that too, like little drops of green.
You can see even after laying it out flat here, when they dry, it starts to get wavy again. And we'll have to use this machine here. This is called a staking machine. To sort of also lay it out again even. Because you can't spray finish on something that's wavy. Otherwise it gets like a tipped look. It has sort of like shadows and highlights. Got it.
There's some football leather. This is college football, so some of the college balls are this orangey color. But back to chrome excel here, I was talking about the staking process. So you'll see this machine here, and you run the leather through it, and it's got these little pins that sort of run back and forth and soften the leather a slight amount. In fact, they can soften it an extreme amount. But the big goal, what they're doing right now, is a really light staking to get the leather to sort of lay out flat. You can see it's much flatter looking at the receiving end of the machine. That's natural chrome excel at this stage.
What's up?
Here's Thon.
Hey, my friend.
Thon is the final sort.
How you doing?
At Horween, he's inspecting all the leather as it goes out, and he's sorting some
Chrome excel.
some black chrome excel. Looks like maybe belt weight there. We're about to look at some other chrome excel that Skip's touching here. This is the opposite end of the spectrum for thickness. This is the thinnest possible. I think those are cowhides. You'll see how the belly is sort of deeper on this. The cows tend to be thinner and then have larger bellies. This skin was made specifically to be thin for a customer that makes jackets. And these are for shot.
Lightweight chromic cell. Leather jacket, yeah.
And see those little toggle clips? It was toggle dried, which is not what they normally do for chromic cell. That's how you get it to be thinner. I mentioned earlier, if you toggle pretty hard, it thins it down a bit.
Remember the basement with the drums that
here's the blue leather.
Yeah, they get color down there. So when you can impart things like Skip was mentioning, you can put different materials that might make the leather softer or more firm. And that same process, you can also add in dyes that make the leather different colors. So this is like one of the brighter shades that they tend to do.
Somebody was asking about Cavalier. This is Cavalier.
Cavalier Chromic Cell. It's a version of the Chromic Cell that has less oil in it, and they developed it that way to be able to achieve those lighter colors. So it's, otherwise they just make Chromic Cell, but they basically, like, when you try to put stain on that, it just like looks brown. It's like can't really dye the color of oil too well.
Right, yeah.
So there's a little bit less oil and a little bit more wax in the Cavalier.
Cavalier Chromic Cell is a less
What's up, Hugo?
oily version of Chromic Cell,
Good to
so they
see
can
you.
get brighter colors.
Yeah, I'm
I
doing
find the
world
Cavalier
tour,
to be a
saying
little
hi to
brighter
everybody.
in
How
luster
are you
too.
doing?
This is another
What are you
version of
making?
Chromic
Is it
Cell.
Chromic Cell or Beaufort?
The Beaufort is a cementable version of Chromic Cell, a little bit less oil content also. Also seems to be a little brighter. See you later, Mike K. Thanks for stopping by. Here's the spray machine. You can see all the spray gun spring finish here. You can apply color, you can apply binders, you can apply top coats, you can apply waxes, all sorts of things with these spray guns. So it feeds down the conveyor into a dryer here. These are gas dryers, little blowers. And then the guy at the end of the machine here is retiring soon after 37 years. Been a few people that have worked there for many decades.
I heard you're retiring. Congratulations. You retire, right? Nice. Everybody retires. Valdez, Salvador, Boyo.
May 27th.
May 27th? Good for you. Man. 37 years.
All right, here's the shipping department. Somebody asked, like, where do you send all these leathers to? And they go all over the world. That one's going to Japan. A lot of domestic U.S. stuff. We're coming to the end here. I think the only last thing we're going to look at is the guest book.
Yeah, it was great. So
This is the Stitch Sound group, sort of wrapping up here. About to go get some pizza.
Can we do it? Yeah. All right.
And the guest book is pretty cool. They have people sign different pieces of leather for the guest book. So there's some shells, there's some calf, there's all sorts of cool stuff hanging on the walls and the ceiling here.
Is the guest book full? Come sign. Down here, please.
So I know I said they don't do tours, and they don't. These are actually usually customers that are signing the guest book. So different awesome makers and companies like that.
Well, they wrote the Stitch Down Palooza.
Oh, there we go, perfect.
It's when we come back next year.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Immortalized.
We get out this way?
We can, well, where's the cross?
Super cool.
I think we're at the end here.
You're good, that's
Are we putting actually?
You can do whatever you want.
Wow, great.
I would not fly up higher.
Well, there we go. Well, thanks, guys. Hopefully you liked the video. That was a really fun group, and I always love walking through the tannery. It's like I said, it's like a museum. So I'm glad that you guys are here to share it with me and everybody watching this in the future. If there's like a certain section of the video, like what's going on there, just leave a little timestamp. Say, hey, at 30 minutes, what's going on there? Why do they do that? And I'll be happy to answer all those sorts of questions. But everybody else, thanks for spending about an hour here with me. That was really fun. And so I'd like to do a different video at the tannery some other time and I'll hire some people to actually capture the audio in a proper way. Because it's so tough. I even tried to clean up this audio a bit. It's just so loud that you can't really hear the tour guide. So apologies for that and the shaky camera work. It was such an amateur capture for me. So I wanted to do this live annotation over it. Ben, thanks for coming by to that tour. It was good to meet you in person, man. And thanks for coming to the live stream too. Nick, thanks so much for hanging out. Tim, great to see you too, man. And everybody else, appreciate you stopping by. I'll look for a video on Sunday with Skip exposing the shell Cordovan. Made a clickbaity sort of thumbnail for that I couldn't stop laughing at. It's called Shell Cordovan Exposed. All right, guys. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you later. See ya.